The good thing, actually, this is the good thing to be noted. Another most important point to be discussed is about the payment. You all know that the deadline for the payment is already over. But if in case anybody still wanted to register for the internship program, please let me know at the earliest. And I'm reminding you people to fill the form after successful payment. So guys, Taken is back with another interesting session which includes player movement with restrictions, food projectile, making food and animal prefabs, fixing boundaries and deleting game objects that are off boundaries. As you people already played the game, you might have known about the second prototype. Let me just give you the gist of it. From the opposite direction, there will be a random movement of random animals from random locations with random speed too. The player can move left and right, and you can feed the animals. And in order to feed the animals, the player has an option to press space. I think Gautam can run towards the start of implementation of the prototype 2 in the today's session. I think I can hand it over to you, Gautam. Please continue.
Thank you, Harshita. So guys, let me create a new project here. So I'll just hit this arrow where I get the version of Unity which I'm going to use. I'll just click there. And in 3D, I'll be selecting the 3D template and I'll be naming my project, prototype 2. And here, make sure that you have the correct location selected. So this is my location of my project. I'll just give this location here. Okay, I'll just select this folder and just click create. We shall wait till the project is created and the Unity editor gets opened. So all those assets are getting imported. Just give it some time, it will open. So here is my Unity editor. Now let me just import the assets I need for this project too. So let me go back to my browser and I'll be sharing this link with you people later. So this is the same procedure we did for our prototype one. We'll just click. If that's the first time you are visiting this page, you have to add this asset to your account. Then you will get this option of open in Unity, and when this pop-up comes, select open Unity editor again. Now this opens in our asset store. Let it load. The same browser page which we have seen earlier in our browser will be displayed here. And here, if it is the first time, it will give you an option to download. After downloading, you will get this option to import. So let me directly click import, and this is a complete project, right? So it will override our complete project. As I have just created this project, I can just say import. When it prompts like this, just click install or upgrade. So now it shows me import Unity package, and these are all the contents, the things that are labeled as new are the new things which I'm going to import, and these other things are already present in my project now here. So let me import all of this. See, they're getting imported. So let me close my asset store. I no longer need that. See, I'm here in my scene. Let me go to my scenes and open the project scene here. So now let me delete this sample scene. So we imported our project package successfully and opened our prototype to scene. So here we have a land, and see our camera is in top down view. We can see here in our game mode that we have the top down view in here. So in this game, this is a top down view game. So let me go to my course library, and there is something called materials in here. See, in materials we have 4 different options, and see, we can apply any kind of material to this. See, this is one kind of material, and this is what we have now. This is another kind of material, or this is another option. I like this one. Let me leave it like that. So let's explore different things where, see, we have different human characters. As we have seen, the objective of the game is we'll be having a player here. Let me just go to the top down view in here also, and let me adjust the screen a bit. So okay, so we will be having one human who will be feeding animals coming opposite to them. So for this we need some player, right? So let me use this particular player here, and let me just add them to my hierarchy, and see their position is 000, and I'm able to see them in my game view, right? So that's okay. I'll leave it like that, and what I'll do is I'll just rename this as player to make more sense. So other than just the human, we need few more things, like we need some animals, right? So let me open the forest animals. What I like is I'll use one fox here. So I have one fox. Let me rename that as fox. Next, I'll use one of the farm animal. I'll use this horse. Next, let me use one kind of dog. I'll use this German Shepherd. Let me just name it as dog. So these are the animals we need in our game. And next, to feed these animals, let me use some kind of food here. We have apple, we have carrot, we have our pizza, we have some sandwich, and water. We can use whatever we want. I'll go with my pizza in here, and I'll rename this also as just food. So here we got all our objects, but see, everything is placed at 0 0, right? So let me create the let me click on each one of this thing, and let me move them a bit. So I'm taking my fox and placing it like this. I'm taking my horse and placing it uh, left side of the fox a bit. Yeah, something like this. And now I'll click my dog and place like this. So if you feel any like any object is small, we can increase the scale as we want. But I guess this is fine for me now. Like I can just increase my fox scale to 12 so that it becomes little bigger. I guess this is fine now. Whereas no, I'll increase. So we can adjust these as we wanted. So let me leave these like this. So I guess everything is fine. Yeah, this food. See, we have our food here. Let me drag that to middle and see this. When I focus this, this looks good, but in our game view, this is very small, right? So let me just scale that up using the transform scale. I'm placing my scale on X, Y, and Z axis, everything as 2. See now, now we are able to look our food well, like everything looks fine. So now we just used all our course library assets and we just got our player, animals, and food, etc., and positioned and scaled them how we wanted. Let me just say this. So, in this particular lesson, now we are going to write the player controller script, and for this game, the player controller just needs to move our player uh, only in sidewards. We will give our player to the ability to move sidewards and we'll restrict the player. We will not let the player to go off the screen. We'll restrict the player at some moment, at some position. So let's get started. So as of now, when we see our player, we just have a transform component and an animator. Now to take input, we need to take input and move the player. We need to add one script, right? So let me just go to my project tab, project window. I'll just right click and create a new folder. I'll name that as scripts. So in the scripts folder, I'll be storing all my scripts. I'll enter the scripts folder and here I'll be creating a new C# script file and I'll name that as player controller. So I have successfully created my player controller script. Now I'll just attach my script to my player. I'll just drag drop in the inspector where I selected my player. So see I successfully attached my player controller script as a component to my player. So from now, as I said, these components decide the properties and behavior of a particular game object, right? So here, whatever we program, whatever we want our player to do, that we can program in our player controller script. And as that is attached to my player, this becomes an additional behavior for my player. So let me just open my player controller script by double clicking this. On double clicking that, my Visual Studio opens, which is my external script editor associated with my Unity. So here, let's take our horizontal input first, and let's just test if our input system is okay to use. So for that, let me create a public float horizontal input. This is just a float variable and I'll be using this to take the input. So in my update, I'll initialize this horizontal input with, as we said already, we'll be using the input class and we'll use the method called getAccess. And we'll give the string name as horizontal. We are using this to map to the horizontal axis. Once let me go back to my Unity and see in edit project settings, we'll be having the input manager here. And in this, we'll be having the axis. As we have already seen this, when we write this input.getAccess horizontal, this getAccess is taking a string which is axis name. This horizontal is same as the name we have here. So that particular method input.getAccess horizontal maps to this axis over here. So when we map this, Unity have already implemented these all things for us. So what this is, the positive buttons are right arrow and the D key, whereas the negative buttons are the left arrow and A key. So the positive buttons gives us positive values, whereas our negative buttons gives us negative values. So let's just save this script, come back to Unity, see as the access modifier of this particular horizontal input variable is public. So as I said, public means the variable can be used outside the class, right? So I'm able to see my horizontal input variable here. And when I hit play, see on clicking right arrow, I'm able to see 1 here, whereas I click left arrow, I'm able to see -1 or some intermediate values. But when I don't give any input, the value will be 0. Same with D and A. So we can use this horizontal input variable to move our player left or right using the translate method. So this is similar to what we have done previously in our car. Just first we wrote our car left or right movement using the slide right instead of rotation. This is similar, pretty similar to that. So so let's use transform.translate and we need to give that a vector3 and let me use vector3.write. So what is this vector3.write? This vector3.write is just shorthand for writing vector3 100. 100 is a unit vector along x-axis. So let me just focus on my player. So this is x-axis, right? The right thing. So when I multiply my horizontal input and some speed value to this particular vector3.write, I'll be able to move my player right when I press the positive button. Whereas if I press my negative button, as I'll be having a negative value for my horizontal input, the vector turns the other side, like it points towards the negative x-axis. So let me multiply with my horizontal input, and as we know that we need to translate based on time, not based on frame rate. For that, let me use my time.delta time, which gives the difference between two frames, and let me use my speed variable to adjust the speed. But see, we are using the speed variable, but we didn't declare that. So let me just declare this public float speed and let me initialize it with 40. So let me save this and let's just check. if it's working fine or not. So entering the play mode. Yes. See guys, now I'm able to move my player, but see, we have some issue. We can move this player indefinitely. See, when I can go even off the screen. So this is the thing. So now what we need to do, we need to just put some restriction to our player. So that our if we need to restrict our player so that they'll not be moving out of our screen. So we need to create some bounds. So let me just check that. I'll just focus on my player and I'll just okay. Now see, if I move my player like this, say it as okay. Let me just have it as minus 15. So see, I'll fix my left boundary as minus 15, which is the x value I have now here. And let me take the player right. I'll put it as 15. See, I guess these values are fine, right? We can restrict our player somehow when they like say in left side we can restrict the player from moving more than minus 15, whereas in the right side we can restrict the player from moving more than plus 15. So let's just implement that now. So we can do that by using something called if statement. So the syntax for if is this thing. So if we write if, we need to give a condition here. So we can say, let me, it will be of this form, like if of condition, and let me comment out everything. And here this will be block, like whatever code we write in this, if only this condition satisfies, this executes. So my condition here is I must not allow my player to move left side more than 15, right? I mean less less than minus 15. So what I'll do is I'll just access my player's position dot transform dot position, and here just see in transform position what we need, we just need our x position. We don't care what our y and z position is. So to do that, let's use period operator again on position, and now we can use x here, and that says x component of the vector. So we are just using this transform dot position of x to get the player's position at current time. And let me check if it is less than minus 15. So now what I'll do, if it is minus 15, I'll just sorry guys. If it is less than minus 15, I will reassign my player's position. So I'll take my position and I'll create a new vector 3. Here I'll be giving my minus 15 as the position. So by this say my player has moved to minus 16. What I'll just do, I'll in this next update, in the next frame, I'll just take him and place him at minus 15 again. And I will remain the other axis. I'll keep the other axis same as before. Transform dot position dot y and transform dot position dot z. So having this like this, and if my player goes beyond minus 15 in the leftwards, I'm creating a new vector with x as minus 15 y same as our player's y position and z as our player's z position. So I have created a new vector and I have assigned to my player position which needs to be a vector 3. So with this, I guess I'll be able to restrict my player in my leftwards. So let's just check this. So entering the play mode, see, I'm a see when we are trying to go left beyond -15, it is not allowing us. So that's a good sign. But we have another issue. We are able to move right side indefinitely. So let's just fix that. Let me place my player at 0. Yes. So to do that, let me just copy paste this if statement again. See now what I'll do is when we check for right, see let me have my player at 15. So if my player goes beyond 15, I need to just place my player at 15 back. So it's the same logic as we used above, but there is a minor change. So if my transform.position.x is greater than 15, I'll just change my transform.position into new vector 3 of 15. So I'm changing my x value to 15, whereas y and z I'm taking that from player itself. So the y and z remains same. If the player moves above 15, I am reassigning the position x to 15, whereas I am reassigning if the player moves less than -15, then I am reassigning my player to -15 again, so that the player remains in boundaries always. So let me just test that. See, I'm unable to move right, and same with left also. So we successfully restricted our player, and we are able to control our player. Like this is the expected controls for this particular game. I'll just place my player in middle. So now let's just clean our code a bit. See, we have used many hard-coded values here. So let me create a new variable called public left bound. Sorry, public float left bound. I will assign that as -15. 0f. I'll create a new variable called public float right bound, where I'll be giving +15 here. So we can use this if transform.position.x is less than left bound, then we can use the we can assign that to left bound, whereas my transform.position.x, that is the player's position's x value, is greater than right bound. Let me just initialize that to right bound. So let me say this and let me say this and run now. So it's the same thing, right? I just replaced the values with variables. So, but see here, if at all we want to change our bounds, the left or right, now we have to change our two variables. So let me find another way to even more make our even make our code more cleaner. Instead of two variables, I will create a new variable called xrange. I will initialize this as -15.0f. Here now I will say if my position is less than negative of my x range, I will assign that to my negative x range. Here, if my x value is player's position x value is greater than x range, I'll just assign that to x range. So just save this and test this again. See, this is full, right? And if I tell I want to change my range, let me assign this as 18 and save this. Let me run that again. Now I'll be able to increase my range. See, it is able to go from minus 18 to plus 18. So this is how we made our player controller, and with this we finished our first lesson in this unit. We just implemented our player control. In this, let me recap what we have learned in this. In this lesson, we have learned how to position, scale, and adjust our game objects however we wanted in our scene. And we have learned new programming concept called if statement. Like what happens when we like we can add logic to our code using this if statement. Like based on a condition we can perform something. So with that we have successfully restricted our player in both the left side and right side, and we have used the greater than and less than operators in the condition of the if statement. So with this we finished our first lesson. Let's move to our second lesson where we make our foot flight. Like as we said in our game, we said our player will be moving from left to right. So we gave our player his or her ability to move right. We need another ability of the player. We have the player, like we need to give our player the ability to project this foot. Like as we said, the animals will be coming from the other side. Like let me demonstrate that. Let me focus on my fox and rotate it by 180. So in the game, say if my fox comes like this, my player must be able to throw a foot at it. So we'll make it such, we'll make the game such a way that when the foot touches this fox, the fox and the foot both will get disappeared, which means that we successfully feeded our fox. So in this, let us in this lesson we'll be creating this food projectile, and we'll be just moving our different what do we say different animals. And in this we'll be seeing a new concept called prefab. So let's just get started with this second lesson. So now our target is to move our food somehow. So to do that, that's an extra behavior, right? So to do that, we'll be needing a script. So let me create a script called move forward. Move forward. So I have successfully created my script, and now let me attach that script to my food game object here. So now my uh, food game object, we add for the food game object, we have added our script as a component. So let me edit this script by double clicking this. I'll be opening this up in my Unity, and let me write a simple code which we have already done for our car in the previous uh, game. So for that, let's use a public float speed variable, and let me assign that as 40 as of now. 40, sorry, 40.0 as, yeah. So now let's write our code to move it in the forward direction. So let's use our transform.translate method again. And this time, as we want to move our game object forward, let's use vector3.forward. And so we need to give some speed, right? To do that, let's multiply with some speed. And as we know, we want this to happen not per frame. We need this to happen based on our time. So to do that, let's give time dot delta time, which just converts our operations uh, to be dependent on seconds, like that is to be dependent on time rather than the frame rate. So let's just go back there and test this. To do that, let's just, yeah, I guess you will be able to see this, but yeah, we selected that. Just follow the arrows to see if it's moving or not. See, it's just moving, right? Like it's just moving at such a great speed, so that's okay for us. So here we have our food, what do we say, our food like this, which is able to move in the forward direction whenever we play, or whenever the script is started. So we need such kind of food variables whenever our player hits some button, like to say that to give our player the ability to throw food at animals, we'll be using the same food game object again and again. Say if we create this food object again, this will such that it have the same behavior. Whenever we press some key like space, we'll be able to do that. So to reuse a game object, we'll create something called prefab. For that, let me first create a new folder called prefabs, where I'll be storing all my prefabs in this game. So let me just drag drop this food game object. See, whatever is present in hierarchy will be a game object, but whatever I have in my project folder, those will be called prefabs. And see, there is a question like, would you like to create a new original prefab or a variant of this prefab? Let me just tell you what's the difference is. Say if we have 3-4 different pizzas where the difference is just maybe the texture of that, like one pizza may be having some kind of colors, whereas other pizza is having different colors. So in that cases, we can have a single uh, food uh, pizza prefab, and we can make different variants of it. Whereas our original prefab is a complete separate prefab. It's all on its own. It doesn't depend on any other prefab. So here we have created an original prefab, and see, this is our game object, and we have our transform mesh renderer and our move forward script attached to it. Whereas to our prefab also we have all these things. Now I can use this particular food prefab to do the same operations. Let me just show you how that happens. So I just created yeah, I just created the food prefab, and let me just go to my play mode, and now let me drag drop this prefab in the game. Uh, See, that is also moving, right? Even though we are unable to see that in our game view, let me just try to put this on the ground. Yes, now we are able to see, right? I'll just leave that. See, it's moving. So if writing some code, if I'm able to uh, generate this food in my game based on my some input, say whenever my player presses space, what I'll do is I'll create a food prefab clone, as it says. See here in this hierarchy, it says food clone. So we have to do something called as instantiation. So what instantiation means? Instantiation means just creating a clone, or creating a copy, or just instantiating. Like, we'll take another food, we'll make a copy of this food prefab and place it at whatever position we want, and what with whatever rotation we want. So to do that, let me go to my scripts folder, and in my player control script, so this is the ability of my player, right? So uh, we will be doing this in our player control script. So for that, we need the reference of our projectile prefab, obviously. To create, like, to make a copy of one thing, we need to refer that, right? So let me create a new variable here called public, as this is we need to, so we need to create this, we need to take this prefab and create that in our game, right, dynamically. So whenever we press space, we need to create that. So obviously that should be a game object, right? Unless it is a game object, we can't have in our game. So public game object, I will call this food prefab. So I'll just declare this, and I'll save this, and let me go to my player here. As that food prefab variable is public, I'm able to see that food prefab here. So let me go to my prefabs, and let me assign this food prefab. Let me initialize that variable with my food prefab. See, I'm able to see my food prefab here, and see till now we have used different and what do we say, different human character, different animals, and food, right? Even those are prefabs. See, we can just have this food banana also here, whatever we want. Even instead of this food here, we can even place a human here. These are all prefabs. So anything can be assigned to that, but we are interested in our food prefab to be generated, right? So we have assigned that. So next, let's test the input of the space bar. So we want it like this. Whenever we press space bar, we need our player to generate this particular food, what do we say, food prefab copy. So let me just write it. We need another if condition to check the player input here. Uh, Here we are not using any access, but we are checking if a particular key on my key on the keyboard is clicked or not. So to do that, let's use our another method in our input class. So anything related to input we'll be doing using the input class, and seeing different methods we'll be having here. See, let's just primarily focus on these three methods: get key, get key down, get key up. So these are the methods which will be used to detect if a particular key is pressed or not. Get key will be giving true whenever the player holds the key, whereas get key down will be giving true whenever the player presses the key down, whereas get key up will be true whenever the player uh, presses the key up. Say when we press a, like whenever we click a key on our keyboard, there will be three events, right? The first thing is we'll be pressing that down, we'll be holding that, and the third thing is we'll be uh, get the, like we'll release that. In that process it will get up. So in this case let's use the get key down and let's see what it requires. This get key down method needs a key code. So to give the key code, let's just use the key code, and we have something called key code enum. It does you need not know what an enum is, but remember this key code just maps all our physical keys on our keyboard to some values such that it recognizes. Say to my space it may give some value as 115. It's a random number, guys, and it's just an example. uh, so our keyboard, we have different number of keys, different keys, and when we press dot operator, see we have these many options here. To each of these, what do we say? Each of this key, a particular number is assigned. So whenever we press that key, so I have my space here. So this key code dot space will give this get key down function the particular value when space is pressed. So it will detect if my space is pressed or not, like if my space key is down or not. So I have checked my if. Now let me write a comment stating what I'll be doing here. I'll just be launching the projectile, the full projectile, whenever space is pressed. So this if condition gave us the ability to do something whenever the space is pressed. So this is what we'll be doing here. So this is as I said. Now let me just go to the play mode. As here I am able to drag my foot prefab here, and as I leaving it, it's moving. So whenever my player press the space key, because of this that if condition, because of that if condition, I need to do the same thing. I need to get this pizza to my start from my player position, and I need to leave that. So to do, as I already said, to do that we need to instantiate the particular game object. So let's see what instantiate is, how to implement instantiation. So we have this method called instantiate, and see we have different versions of it. Obviously it needs the original prefab which we have in our food prefab variable. So we are creating this food prefab copies of this food prefab variable, and we need some other options like stating the position and rotation of it. So let me see some other options in which I can write. See, I think this will be useful for us. Here it is asking the original prefab which we have already given, and it's giving a we need to give it the position and the rotation of it. So we need similar kind of that, right? We are going to create our food prefab where are we going to create? We are going to create it at the position where our player is present right now. So to do that, to give that position, I can use my transform position. That is because this particular script player controller is attached to my player here. So I want this put to instantiated player position. So from this script, I am accessing this transform component. And in the transform component, I am accessing my position here. So here this food prefab, when we instantiate this copy of this food prefab, that copy will be generated at the player's position. And let's leave the rotation same as our prefab's position. Sorry, rotation. So to access that, let's use food prefab dot, and it has its own transform component, right? And let's use its rotation. So with this, I guess everything must work fine. Let me explain this instantiate again. For the instantiate, we need to give one prefab, which is the one which we have in our prefabs folder. So if we give this, whenever we call this method instantiate, it's taking two other parameters, total three parameters. It's taking this food prefab, making a copy, and it's placing at this particular position, which we gave as our player position, and adjusting its rotation as this particular rotation. So we need not change our rotation of our food or new copy. It can be same as our food prefabs rotation. So this is the thing. Let me save this and check if it's working or not. So my first food it flew off, and whenever I'm creating s, see how clean it is. I'm able to generate a new food whenever I press my space button, and that's behaving the same way as we have our food prefab to be. So this is how we create our projectiles. Uh, this is how the prefab, different prefabs help us. And as we made our projectile, now let's and now let's make our animals move. So we need our animals to be coming from the other side of screen. So let me just rotate all my animals. Now I have already my fox rotated. Let me just rotate my horse now. I'll place it as 180. Whereas same with my dog. I'll just change my Y rotation as 180. See, now all the three have been rotated. And let me just, yes, I think this looks cool. Now what I'll do is I want my what do we say, these animals to be moving in this direction. So I can happily use my move forward script for each of these animals, right? So for those animals, this particular direction is forward. Like the forward direction is this way. So if I attach my script, move forward, I have written the script as if we attach to any game object, that I'll be moving that particular game object in its forward direction. So let me just check that. So to do that, let me select my fox, and holding shift I'll select my dog, so that I'll select all the three. And here I'll just drag drop my move forward script so that I attach to each of the animal. So let me just see this. I have my move forward script attached to each of my animal, and let me just adjust my values somehow. I'll just keep my fox speed as 15, whereas my horse speed as 20, and my dog speed as 10. See, with the same script, by using the speed variable as public and See, for fox, the speed is 15, whereas the horse, the speed is 20, whereas for dog, the speed is 30, and for food, the speed is 40. Let's just hit play and see what happens here. See how, see, as we see our, just let me pause this. We see our horse with highest speed to be far away, and next we see our fox which is having the little bit lesser speed, and we see dog at last position where that is the one having the lesser speed. So with the same script here, we are able to get this much power, right? Like we wrote a single script and we have a variable here called speed, and we attached the same script to different objects, and we adjusted the speed variable value. That's all we did. And see the power we have now. Each of the thing is moving at its own speed and the way we wanted. The food is going in the positive z direction, whereas the animals are moving in the negative z direction. So that's the beauty of having the scripts here. We can use it on different game objects with just customizing the variable, one speed variable. We are able to get different speeds for different game objects, right? Now let's just make prefabs of this, what do we say, animals also. So let me just drag this fox, and we'll be creating original prefabs, and same for horse and same for dog. Every time we are creating an original prefab because we want these prefabs to be independent of any other prefab. So now let's just play again and test this back if our prefabs are working fine or not. Let me go to my player and see here. I'll just drag drop this. See if I have my, let me go a bit more. Yeah, if I have my food here, they are moving as intended. Now let me see what our dog behaves like. See, it is also moving. Same with our fox and same with our horse. See, they are infinitely moving and they are always present here. So let me go back. So what we'll be doing next is, say, now let me show you what is the disadvantage. So we are, say if I'm creating some food clones here. See, let me pause this. See, all my food clones are present in my scene only. So this increases the load on our scene. They're present far away from our original position. See, see that is the ground there, and this prefab came this far away, but it is still present in our scene. What's the point of having this food prefab here when it's out of our scene view? Sorry, game view. So let us program that. Let us write a script which destroys our projectiles, our food projectiles, whenever they're off the boundaries, like off our when they're out of our screen, like out of our game view. So let's just go to the scripts folder and create new C# script. I'll call that as destroy out of bounds. So as of now, let me add this script to my food variable here, food game object here. See, it got added, and now I can write this particular behavior which I want to give to my food game object. So let me get to my Visual Studio here, and I need to perform a very basic check here. I need to just let's just go to the food here. See, let me move this a bit. See, if my, let me round it to 30. See, whenever my food is at 30, whenever my get value of my food is 30, see, it's off the screen, right? So whenever we have our food, say, uh, whenever the food jet value is above 50, I can happily delete that because it's no longer visible in my game view. So to implement that, we need a uh, top bound variable. So let me just go and create that, and let me get this back to the same position. So let's create a variable public float top bound, and in here I we have fixed that value, right? Let me initialize this to 30. Guys, just excuse me a minute. I'll be back. I just have an issue here. Just give me a minute. That's it. I'll be back. Yeah. Sorry for my interruption, guys. Now let's just continue. As we have our top bound variable, so let me initialize that to 30.0 as we have seen that when my z value of the food game object is above 30, or it's at 30, it's no longer visible in my screen, right? Like in my game view, right? So there is no point of having that. So here what I'll do is I'll just perform a check if the position is greater than the top bound. So to do that, we'll be using the same if statement again, and here will be this script as it is attached to my food game object. I can directly access its transform.position dot z. So by this I'm accessing the, say, the script is attached to a particular game object. I'm accessing the transform component of the game object, and in the transform I'm accessing the position, which is a vector 3, and when I use dot z, it gives me the z component of the vector 3. So I can have it like if it is above my top bound. So so if it is above my top bound, what I'll do, I'll just destroy this game object. So we in Unity we have something called as destroy method, and this requires a game object, and see the description, it says removes a game object component or asset. So this time I need to delete this particular game object. So I can just say game object. So this game object refers to the thing that is the current game object. Say if I attach, as I have attached this script to my food variable as of now, sorry, food game object as of now, this just means that destroy this food game object, whenever it is going off the bounds, like whenever its z position is off the bounds, just destroy this game object. So it's like a self-destruction thing. So whenever this script is attached to the game object itself, the food itself, and whenever this see, I'll just run this and check that this food will be deleted whenever this z value has become 30. I'll just run it and move it frame by frame so that we'll be see. I'll just run it frame by frame. See, my z value is still 20, 21, 22, 23, 26, 29. See, next thing in my next step, I guess it will be reaching 30, and as it reaches 30, it will be deleting. It's just 29.9, it's still safe. See, now it's 30.7. In the next frame, this food must delete. Yes, it's got deleted. This is our implementation, right? Whenever this particular game object in its z-axis is moving, z-axis position is above 30, we are deleting that. So we have successfully implemented our food value here. Now let's just test that with this new variables also. But see, we have an issue here. We have just the thing working for our food, but what happened to our new created clones? They're not deleting, right? They're still present somewhere, like they're continuously moving and they're still present. Even see, our z value is 635, which is a lot more than 30. So this is the problem, or this is the danger when we use our prefabs. Whenever so so we have created this food prefab, right? See, let me just show you here. See, this is our food game object. I have my destroy off bounds script attached to my uh, game object here. But let's see what's the case with our prefab. See, in our prefab, we don't have our script attached. So why what happened here? So whenever we create prefab and we make changes to a particular game object, there is something called overrides here. And when we click that, see, it's just showing, it's just saying that you have added something extra to the food prefab, and it's asking, shall I revert all, means shall I get back to normal state or shall I apply? So let's just see here, for the game object we have this destroy out of bounds, but our prefab we don't have this. So whenever we apply this, let me click apply all, and now see, whenever I get back to my prefab here, see, my destroy out of bounds script got attached to my prefab also. So whenever we change our prefab, like our game object, which is a prefab also, we need to apply that all. So there are no overrides now. So there is no change. Let me just remove this component and let me attach that again. I'll open my scripts. I will attach this again. So now again I need to override this. What, see here it says minus destroy out of bounds plus destroy out of bounds. So there are two changes here. The first thing is removing the component and adding the component. When I apply all, it does both the things and it will be same. So let's get back to my prefabs, and every time just make sure that your prefab and your game object both are same, like similar. So all the components which I have for my game object, I have the same components for my player also, prefab also. So I'm just saving this, and now let me check if it's working fine or not. So my food variable got deleted. Now let me create a new food. So see how cool it is. I'm creating a new food clone, deleted. Clone, created, deleted. Created, deleted. Created, deleted. This is the same whenever we use more also. They'll get deleted once they're out of the particular bounds. So there is another step left. We can use this same script or for our animals also. So let me just select all my animals and add this destroy out of bounds, and we need to change make few changes for this. That is because see in our game view. Now let me move my mount fox here. So whenever we have our fox, say I'll round the top to 10. See, whenever our fox moves below -10 in our Z, so we can delete that, right? Same applies to our what do we say, horse and this dog also. So I'll be having my -10 as my boundary here. So let me implement that. So we can check that as public float. Uh, Let me name this as the one is topper bound. So let me name it as lower bound. And this thing I can have, as I seen, I can have it as -10.0f. And here I'll be adding another if statement. Else we can use an else if statement here. So else if statement does nothing but say if our condition this is true, it will never go for else if. So if this particular condition is false, then it will check this condition. If this is true, this particular thing happens. And here also the same thing we are doing. We are just destroying our game object. So in our animal case, uh, these variable values will be same, whereas this transform.position.z refers to our players or animals transform position, and we need to change this when they are lesser than or lower bound. We need to delete that particular game object, right? So let me just go back to Unity and see. It's not just enough to add the script. We need to. I'm selecting all my what do we say animals, and we need to apply all. So we are when we apply all. See, even in our prefabs, the same thing will be reflected. See, we have our destroy out of bounds to our prefabs also. So if we don't do this, the prefabs, if we create a new copy of our prefabs in future, they'll not be having this property, this behavior to destroy these game objects when they're out of the bounds. So let me just play this and see. All my animals got deleted and all my food also got deleted. And let me test by placing this. See, they have been created, and when they pass the what do we say, when they go out of the screen, out of the particular bond, they are getting deleted. So this is one of the most important benefits we will be having because we use our prefabs. So later, so now we have successfully finished our lesson. We made our food projectile. Let me do a recap. So here in this lesson we came to know how to create prefabs and how to override prefabs. We just created our food, later when we added our destroy out of bounds, we overrided and applied that so that it applies to the prefab, so that the other prefabs which we create will also have this component attached. And next, we have tested if some particular key is pressed. In our case, it's space key. And we have instantiated our objects, like we instantiated our in our player control, we instantiated our food object, like created a clone of it whenever the space is pressed. And we also destroyed our game objects when they are off the bounds. We came to know different programming constructs like the if statement and else if statements, because of which we have our cool logic here in our player controller and our destroy out of bounds also. So this is the things. This is we successfully covered our agenda for today, guys. If you have any doubts, you can ask me now. So, guys, now I'll be sharing the attendance sheet. Please, everyone fill that to claim your attendance. Just make sure that you fill this before you leave the session. Yeah, Pravina is asking, can we give a particular food to a particular animal? Yes, we can do that, but we need to have like different keys for different food. Like pressing the space key, we are generating our what do we say, our pizza now. We can use another key so that we'll be generating another what do we say, another food item. So let me just quickly show you that. But it's all the players gameplay, right? They can give whatever food they want to whatever animal they want. So let's just do the same things. Let's just go to our course library and in food this time let's use our no, I'll use this food bone. And let me resize that. No, let me leave that in the same way. And see, let me write it as let me rename that as dog food. And here to this dog food I'll be attaching my scripts which gives it the behavior to move forward and destroy off bounds. Sorry, destroy off bounds. So uh, let me just check now how it's behaving. So we have this dog food also the way it's wanted. And let me now just create a prefab of that dog food. I'm creating prefab and I'm creating an original prefab. See, I have successfully created my dog food. And to be able to instantiate it whenever some key is pressed, I need to edit my player controller, right? So let me go to my player controller and in here say this time if I press my F key, I need to instantiate this. So I'll be using my get key down, and this time key code dot, do I have F here? Yes. Sorry. So okay, I have created my if statement, but now I need to have the reference to my game object, right? I need to have some reference to my what do we say, our bone prefab, uh, dog food prefab. So let me create a variable for that, public game object dog food prefab. Okay. So as I have this as my public variable, I'll be able to see that in my inspector. And when I click on my player, yes, see it's asking for a game object, and I can give my prefab from here. So let me drag drop this. See, now I have my reference to my dog food prefab, and I can do whatever I want with that particular prefab. So let me copy paste the same thing, and instead of this food prefab, I'll be using my dog food prefab. So what it will do, this instantiate now this time refers to my dog food prefab, right? It creates a copy of this dog food prefab whenever the player press the F key, and then they'll place this copy, the clone which got created just now. They'll place that in the position of our player, which is the which we are referring by transform dot position. And this also I need to change. We are rotating it in such a way that this will be having the same rotation of our previous prefab, like the dog food prefab. Is the rotation okay? Let me go to my dog food prefab. Oh, sorry, its position is not okay. Let me just get it a bit down. Let me get that to. Let me reset this value and just position that wherever I want. I'll just. Okay, this is too small. Let me increase its size. So before it's near to our camera, I guess. So that's why I have. It looked as if it's bigger. So now I guess I have done everything correctly. Now let me just check that. So successfully those two have gone. So when I press space, I'm getting my pizza here. And when I press this, let me increase the size a bit. It's not looking that good. So when I press my space, I will be having my what happened? Okay. Whenever I'm pressing my space, I'll be having my pizza. Whereas whenever I'm pressing my F, I'll be having my dog food here. So this is the way, like whenever we need different game objects, we need to map those particular food game object or food prefab with different keys, so that say when if later if I have my dog coming towards me, I can just uh, throw my dog food instead of the regular pizza. So it's up to the player to give whatever food they want, but we'll give the option to give the particular food based on the particular key. So that's the thing. Is it clear, Praveen? Yes, it will become complicated. That's why in our case we are just using a single food for all the animals.